This is Faith McDonald, and I'm talking to Conor Lucas Roberts about Yida Refugee Camp in South Sudan, the unwilling but still survivable home of the Nuba people from the Nuba Mountains, victims of the genocide by the National Congress Party. Conor is the area coordinator for Unity State, which includes Yida Camp as well as Adjunct Camp and the area in the surrounding region. So Conor, could you tell us a little bit about how long you've been at the Yida Refugee Camp?
First came to Yida in January 2012. At that point I was, when I started working in South Sudan, I was based out of Juba. And so I would come back and forth between Yida and Juba until the end of February. By the end of February 2012, I started living here full time. For Samaritan's Purse in the current position. So I've been in my current position living in Yida since the end of February 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said you were in Juba before that?
Originally, when the position first started, the area coordinators were based out of Juba, and our country director, and then the needs in Yida changed and restructured where the area coordinators were based out of. But during the initial response to the refugees in Yida, we had some staff were in Juba facilitating getting supplies and advocacy and funding, while other staff were based in Yida responding to the needs of the refugees here.
Okay. And how did you get involved with Samaritan's Purse?
I mean, it's just a God thing. You have to be led. You have to have a passion to do the work. After graduating from college, I spent 4 years as an officer in the Marine Corps. Did logistics for an artillery battalion, and then praying about what to do near the end of that contract, and felt led into humanitarian work, seeking opportunities within faith-based, ideally, but just whatever. Just want to be able to come out and help in a disaster-type setting. So this was a little bit after the Haiti earthquake, and Samaritan's Purse had a large response to Haiti, and so I was hired by Samaritan's Purse to work in Haiti for a year until through November 2011. By the people that I met in Haiti with Samaritan's Purse opened up the opportunities for the current position with Samaritan's Purse in South Sudan.
Great. And it sounds like you were well prepared if you were doing logistics for the Marines. So I think that it takes that kind of
security and logistics. It helps prepare for a rural location like Yida for sure.
Great. Well, can you tell us what your 3 greatest concerns are at present for the people?
The big thing that comes up as far as the concerns in Yida that have always been the concerns in Yida is there's a huge desire for the Nuba people for education, and education hasn't been endorsed or supported by any NGO other than a really small scale since the start of the camp in 2011. And so you have a population that seeks education, but everything is run by the refugees. And so they have the students meet under trees or falling over grass shelters, and you have some of the classrooms will pass by the primary schools in the refugee camp. You may have 200 kids packed in a small shaded area that's suited for maybe 20. And so that's just a huge concern, obviously, for the generation. The camp's been here for over 2 years, and with close to 70,000 refugees here, nothing's going to change that quickly. And so just seeing that there's not education now, but just the likelihood is that there won't be really fully supported education. So the Nuba refugee teachers, they do the best they can, but a lot of the teachers take jobs with NGOs, and because then they can be paid, and there's no school supplies or really textbooks or curriculum, and so it's just a lot of somebody standing up in front of all these packed students, just telling them, talking to them, maybe with the blackboard and some chalk, but nothing else. So, yeah, that's definitely a huge concern of the camp. The challenge. The reason it's like that is that the government wants it to be a transit camp. They want the refugees to move. And so the other concerns would feed into that same concept of how long do you keep refugees in the transit camp? They're still getting water, they're still getting health services, nutrition services, food. Nuba people have been able to create a nice life for themselves here, still being refugees, but yeah, there's definitely concerns with the fact that it's still a transit camp.
Yeah.
Over 2 years later, knowing that there's no sufficient alternative for the refugees to move. Even if they move to Adjong camp, that's you'd still have around 50,000 left here. And next, take maybe another year to get another 20,000 to another camp. And so, realistically, you have a transit camp scenario for refugees for 2 to 3 more years under the current systems. So, those are some larger concerns.
That is a concern, because it seems like this is, as far as it goes, a perfect setup. So why not just keep improving on this and let the people stay there? So maybe we need to put some more pressure on people about that situation.
There's challenges, I think there's challenges from both sides, and so realistically, there's making it a transit camp isn't a totally uninformed decision. It gives the consequences are negative for the refugees, but I think it's important for all of us to remember that there are two sides to the story, and there's a reason it's a transit camp. Is that Nuba people do like moving back and forth, and they feel they would all prefer to live in their homes, which is why they like being in a refugee camp that's as close as possible to their homes, while still being on the other side of the border. But yeah, it's never worked in other refugee camps before, but I know, talking to other individuals, that Yida is very, very politically complicated. Nobody's really exactly sure where some of the policies come from, but the great part about the Nuba people is they'll make the most of the opportunities they have. So I think that God teaches us to look at the positives, and so it ends up being harder for me to answer what the biggest concerns and negatives are, because the Nuba people work so hard for themselves. I guess you could throw the third aspect of the negative is that it is a refugee camp, and so why are refugees having to provide so much for themselves? They do, and so as a result, there aren't as many concerns for the refugees because they're willing to do so much for themselves. But that's kind of the challenge. The challenge of the Yida context of things you're concerned about don't necessarily exist, but the reasons why, or where maybe some of the concerns come from, some of the policy and the environment that's been set up, hesitancy to international governments and funders to commit money here for some legitimate reasons, but it's still a challenge for sure.
Okay, well, since you were talking about positive, I'd like to just end by talking about some positive things. But before we do, on the issue of teachers and curriculum, would churches in the United States be able to purchase curriculum that could be used here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
okay.
I'd have to do a little bit of research to know exactly what they're using, but I believe it's just a standard Kenya syllabus, taken from a lot of Nubans spent their education and their refugee periods in Kenya. There's a lot of ties between Kenya and Nuba for education.
Okay.
And so it's just a matter of setting them up here. The challenge comes in is that if you want to support education here, then has to be independent of other work. If you're expected to get UN or government funding, supporting education here is one of the big political flashes, flashpoints, if that's the appropriate term. So you'd want to be a private donor that isn't concerned about whether or not they'll lose UN funding because they support education in the camp. So you'd have to pick a partner, Nuban NGO or somebody that isn't relying on UN funding that could actually implement it. So it's a great need, and you can do the salaries and a lot of the structure and the work. Most of the things that Nubans will do themselves is just that it's the school supplies and the textbooks that are a great need, but also a need that can be addressed. But again, it's a massive response. I mean, you're dealing with over 20,000 school-age youth. So there's been some small responses to 300, 400 secondary age students, high school age students in the United States, equivalent to do 15 to 20,000 school age is a big responsibility, but I think you can definitely start somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Every little bit could help. Okay. So give me some positives. What are the things that you see as the most encouraging about the camp and the people?
Sure. I mean, one of the great things you've been able to see is just the growth of the church, the growth in power of the work that Christ is doing through the Nuba pastors that are here with their congregations, the passion of different outside missionary, even translation groups that are coming up, and you're giving the Nubian tribes over maybe 90 different tribes and 50 different languages, similar tribes and similar languages, but still distinct, are represented in the 70,000 people in Yida. Normally the Nuba Mountains area where they're coming from is very, very difficult to access. Every tribe is kind of isolated in different areas of rugged terrain, and I know that some translation biblical groups will call some of these areas unreached. They still don't have the Bible translated in their language, and so as a result of this, a lot of tribes that maybe predominantly be Muslim coming down to Yida and seeing this new openness. As a result of being in this kind of melting pot area of all these different tribes together, there's a new openness to new ideas, and one of the new ideas is Christianity and the power of Christ. And you're seeing a lot of hearts being changed. You're seeing conversions from maybe tribal animism or Muslim to Christianity. And so outside groups from the United States, from Kenya, from Nigeria, from South Sudan, pastors from Juba, people are hearing about the Nuba people in Yida and how it's a great opportunity to spread the gospel while people are still here, and groups are even coming in and doing translation work, and we have some of the pastors that work for us, and just over the last couple months, just excitement of seeing their language being translated into written language, which then the goal is to translate the Bible or the Jesus film or even anything, just starting with the grassroots. People coming up and helping them write their language. It's a huge positive. It's just amazing to see the work of God here. We were here in 2000. I was here in 2012 during the rainy season, June and October. And the other positive is just seeing how far the health and the situation of refugees has come, even in the midst of being in transit camp. Being involved with nutrition and food distributions and water and sanitation in the camp, having a stabilization center where we have the most malnourished children come into our center and stay overnight and be treated by our nurses last year. We saw firsthand the sickness and what happens to children that are also malnourished and sick is saw there was a lot of deaths. In 2012 rainy season, there was emergency level death rate for youth.